Luke, do you know if Beth is attending?
I think so.
Katie said she's having some computer issues, so she's on her way.
Okay. Well, we can wait a minute or two and see if Katie and or Beth show up.
Yep.
There we go.
And then once Katie gets here, you can start the meeting. Andy is ready to go.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry, small technical issues over here.
I keep waiting. You want to start?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, how long should we wait for Alder Cole?
I think you're good to start, to be honest.
All right. Yeah.
It's computer issues. She could be here all night.
I mean, right, it could be 30 seconds or 30 minutes, yeah. All right. Call to order the meeting of the Verona Plan Commission for Monday, May 3rd, 2021 at 6:33 p.m. We will begin with the roll.
Mayor Diaz.
Here.
Commissioner Powers.
Here.
Commissioner Hingle.
Here.
Commissioner Lytle.
Here.
Commissioner Hankert.
Here.
Commissioner Tucker Long.
Here.
And Alderperson Cole is in the process of getting on the meeting.
With that, we will move on to item 3, which is public comment. Mr. Sayer, do we have anyone under public comment?
Yes, we have both Brian Munson and Chris Ellers wishing to speak.
All right.
I'll promote both of them. And Katie has arrived.
Excellent.
All right. Brian, are you there?
He's
Check.
in here. He's here. I don't see his camera or microphone on.
Okay. All right. Do you by chance have the presentation, Adam? So we can...
I have it. I did not download it, but Brian's unmuted now.
Oh, okay. You got it, Brian?
There we go.
There you go. Okay, can you give control to Brian, and then Brian, you can pull up the presentation, correct?
Yes, I can. Working on that right now.
Okay, thank you. In the meantime, hello everybody. It's good to be back in front of Plan Commission. It's been a little while since we've last seen everybody, and that was for the Woods at Cathedral Point development, which was really a feather in the hat to all of us, which I'll touch on here in a little bit. But thank you for having us tonight. Little different circumstances than we were last time. We're all remote compared to when we were all in the same room together. So since then, though, there's still obviously a demand for housing in Verona, and especially given what everybody's been through in the last year. So I just want to kind of walk through with you what we've been working on here very diligently for over a year now, and are very proud of what we're going to bring forward to you tonight. So with that being said, with me tonight is Brian Munson, our planner, and then also Dan Day, our engineer who works with D'Onofrio and also works quite a bit with on our neighborhoods in the past that we've done in Verona and is familiar with all of the standards and requirements. Brian's also been working with Veridian for 20 plus years. doing our master plan communities throughout Dane County. Myself, I'm Chris Ellers. I've been with Veridian for a few years now, and again, just working on handling all of the development of our new neighborhoods. Building homes that enrich lives and realize dreams, that's a company motto that was taken on and back in 2000 when the company was formed, and something we still believe in today. Basically, we work off three main guiding principles, and I'll touch on those here briefly for you. The first one is housing variety. We really try to, if you go through our neighborhoods, create a different variation of housing. And it used to be houses similar size, just different facades, but ever since Cathedral Point Woods, now it's really opened up, and other municipalities, including Waunakee, Fitchburg, and even Madison, have all driven through and seen our plan and like what we, us being Veridian and the city of Verona did with Cathedral Point Woods, and that you've got a variation of housing types all on the same street. When I say housing types, I mean entry-level housing, move-up housing, and luxury housing, all sharing the same park and located within the same neighborhood. Next item, vibrancy. Really, this comes down to our parks and our planning. We really take pride in trying to have a community park scattered or surrounded by some smaller pocket parks. Verona's got a great parks department who's very diligent on their standards and on their design, and we have many meetings with the parks department in creating these master plans. And we have the opportunity with what we're going to show you tonight to create another large community park with some new amenities that I'd be very excited to include. And then finally, sustainability. We are a part of the Green Tier group, and for those of you that don't know, participants in Green Tier's Clear Waters Initiative charter have been working to reduce sediment delivery to water bodies in Dane County since 2006. There's members from local municipalities, ourselves, and the DNR. The partnership between local government and building sector has resulted in reductions of sediment and nutrient delivery from land-altering activities beyond the current standards. We go above and beyond what's required from a stormwater and sediment requirement, but we take that into account when we're doing new developments, and we're very cautious of what is getting disturbed and how to, on a night like tonight, use the best management principles in place for stormwater quality. So, that being said, what are we bringing forward tonight? The Marty property, and I'll turn it over to Brian, who can talk to you about the planning side of this and what exactly we're presenting here.
Well, thanks, Chris. Really just to kind of get some of the highlight components of what was the program going into this, and really touching on one of the cornerstone three guidelines of that. We really see this neighborhood as an opportunity to have a wide range of potential home buyers. So everything from first-time home buyer, move up, luxury, and then some new active adult age-targeted housing types that would be new to the Verona area. And of course, as Chris said, with Veridian as the developer and builder, they have control over how the details happen, because that really matters, both in guiding what kind of houses get built, how do they fit together from an architectural sense and a character sense, but then what price points is it delivered to the market to make sure that it meets the demands of everyone within the community. So just to get us grounded a little bit, of course, if you're aware, the Marty Farm, immediately north of Epic along PD, a great property that's long been identified for potential development. In fact, the adopted Northwest Neighborhood Plan really shows the goals for the community here, which identified on this property low-density residential and a small portion actually identified as medium-density residential. The net resulting impact being about 565 total home potential. But we use this as our guideline, coupled up with an analysis of the physical characteristics of the site to create a concept plan that delivers 400 total single-family homes. So just to walk through a little bit of the concept, of course, building from south to north, from PD phasing to the north, you can see a large range of different lot types and different price points. We have single-family homes, both with carriage access and conventional street access. Those are highlighted in the range of yellows, and as you head from south to north, the density slowly decreases as you head north. We also have included some twin home product in here, so we have some market rate twin homes on the southern edge along PD. Then, as I mentioned, our Haven series is located in the eastern portion. That would be age-targeted senior housing, all of which would be attached product for sale. Knitting all of this together, a walkable street network and grid, and a significant park and open space component along the stormwater management spine that goes through the center of the property. This would be coupled up with bike trails, opportunities for a neighborhood park, as well as gathering areas within the neighborhood. As we noted, the neighborhood plan does allow for some multifamily. However, we're not proposing any multifamily rentals within this project or anything larger than a twin home. So just to walk us quickly through the various housing types. As I said, within our twin home options within the project, we have two different sets. We have 16 market rate twin homes, so that'd be 8 total buildings with a zero setback lot line, a shared party wall. And then we have 92 of the Haven series. So this really allows our twin homes to span from first-time home buyers all the way up to empty nesters or move-downs. The market rate would give us that entry-level sale point for attached housing options, and then the Haven would offer really condominium-like services in support of the residents without the constraints of a condominium. Our single family at the entry-level point starts with carriage lanes. We have 74 carriage lanes access single-family homes, and these homes offer opportunities for buyers to have diverse price points and lifestyle choices, coming in ranges from 2, 3, and 4 bedroom formats. To kind of compare these, as I think we mentioned this when we talked about the woods, is that the homes themselves are actually very comparable to the front-loaded homes. Really, the differential is we've taken the garage from the side and moved it to the back. They have different configurations with, of course, the yard space, but this allows this neighborhood to have a broader range of opportunities for the life cycle housing, depending on where people are, whether it's price point or choice, they can find a house within the neighborhood. Then forming the final component of our housing, we have 218 conventional single family. And again, much like the entire theme of the neighborhood, these will range in size from the south to the north and in price point and opportunity for different floor plans. A couple of the components of the neighborhood housing pieces, you'll notice on the plan, we front out to Shady Oak. And this was done intentionally. We transition in size, so some of the larger houses transition along the span of that roadway, but fronting out to it really creates an opportunity where we embrace the street as part of the neighborhood to really help reduce that feel that it's a highway along the neighborhood and help address travel speeds. A couple of the pieces that architecture and design of the houses, of course, will focus on that front porch and walkable streetscapes, regardless of where you are in the neighborhood, and that this will again offer a wide range of price points and scale, so that as we transition through the neighborhood, you'll see different characteristics and feel as you move throughout the neighborhood. The final component, of course, are parks and open space. And as Chris said, the design of our parks and open space is really critical towards creating that environment, both from a sustainability standpoint, but a character standpoint. So if we look closer at our concept here, just highlighting the open space, you can see, of course, the large regional drainage system that comes through is a great opportunity. This is something we used in Juniper Ridge. The picture in the northeast, the top right of the slide shows the drainage way that goes through that neighborhood with trails, benches, parks, and open space scattered along it. It also gives a great opportunity to have a regional bike trail that would take any bikers off of Shady Oak and bring them through the neighborhood on off-street trail connections and then future connections along the PD corridor. So really expanding that opportunity for residents of the neighborhood and the region to move along that open space corridor. The final piece of that, of course, is our parks. And as you notice, we have 3 main park areas. We have a large community park at the entrance of the neighborhood. We have a small pocket park as part of our Haven series, and this would be themed and guided towards the residents that live around it. And then a small park in the north corner of the project. Looking a little closer at our community park, of course, we were looking at opportunities and would work closely with the Parks Department, but saw an opportunity for things such as pickleball, multi-use fields, shelters, trails, and bike path extensions to really create this as an amenity for the entire community. There could be off-street parking. There could be a wide range of different uses that could go into this space. We're really excited about it as it's not just the park itself, but the fact that it's part of our large open space system that spans through the entire neighborhood and really opens up opportunities for residents of the entire community. So that's kind of a real quick summary of where we're at. And so with that, I will turn it back over to Chris just to talk a little bit more about the entire project.
Sorry about that, I was muted. Thanks, Brian. Just in conclusion here, how does the housing type break down what we're looking at right now? As you can see from the pie chart, the twin homes, which is the entry level twin home style, fee simple, you purchase one side, you live on a side where you have the shared party walls of 4%, followed by then the other side of that, which is entry level standalone single family, 19%. So combined, about a quarter of the houses will be meant for entry level. Then we have another quarter of the house, about 24% for move up, and then luxury at 30%. The Haven, or the downsizer seasonal type buyer, is geared at 23%. We can kind of dial those knobs a little bit if need be, but this is what we really try to go to, is get kind of an even split for a good diverse community. So finally, in conclusion here, again, just to reiterate, this is not, this is a master plan community. It's not going to pop up overnight. This takes a long time to get through the approval process and also to build and develop the land. We would start from south to north. It's approximately a 10-year build, and that's from when we start closing houses. So we potentially wouldn't be developing land until 2022 or 2023, and then it will slowly phase its way up from south to north. The development is consistent with the woods at Cathedral Point, and except for the fact that we are recognizing that we're in a kind of a newer area of Verona and the city expansion, so we didn't want to try to bring any multifamily or any high density product in this time. It's not ready for that yet, so we are coming into this with just building single family adjacent to the largest employer in Dane County, and really there is a need there, and so it's something that we're excited to address, and would be willing to answer any questions if anybody has them. So thank you again for giving us the opportunity, and that's all we have for now.
And of course, Planning Commission members can ask questions later when we get to the agenda item. But does anyone have any questions for the applicants right now? I'll ask one question quick. In regards to the garages for the houses, could they all be made, if the project were to go forward, could they be made EV charge ready, like with 240 volt outlets, just as a standard?
Yes, it's an option that we currently offer that as an option. It's an additional fee for buyers. We haven't made it required or included it with the home price, but we are set up where we could easily offer that as a standard in the houses if that's the direction that we think the industry is going, which it very well could be given how many electric cars you're seeing around town today.
Great. Any questions from the Planning Commission? Commissioner Henkard, and then Commissioner Tucker-Long.
Yeah, so I know we got a couple of comments from the people, and you'll probably hear from them tonight on Shady Oaks. You know, obviously there's the more rural, somewhat residential properties there, and yet your development has the densest stuff up against them, and then the more less dense single family on the other side. Just wondering if to blend from the rural residences on the east into your project could consider.
Yeah, actually, to explain the density, so going from PD north, the higher density residential would be along PD, which is where more of the market rate twin homes and the carriage access single family predominantly is in that kind of southwest 40. Then as you transition to the north within the project, the density step down towards the town. The eastern 40 includes really the Haven series, so the age targeted twin homes. And then as you head along Shady Oak, it does the same thing. It steps from moderate sized lots to larger lots as you continue to head north along Shady Oak. So as we designed the package of housing, we tried to transition that along that general framework to the north.
Could,
Okay.
if I may, just to follow up, can you bring up your map? When you were
Yeah.
talking, map tells
will be happy.
1,000 words.
Okay, can everyone see that?
Okay.
Yep, so you can see the lighter yellow shades in this location are the carriage lane single family. The purple here is the market rate twin homes. And then as you head north, it transitions through kind of move up single family to more of the luxury single family to the north. On the eastern, the blues are a combination of alley and street accessed Haven series. So this is again is our senior housing, our age targeted housing. And then as you head along Shady Oaks, again, you get to some of the largest lots within the project are part of that frontage onto Shady Oak.
All right. Well, thank you for that clarification. I see that now.
Commissioner Tucker Long.
I was just wondering if you could let us know, is Cathedral Woods full at this point?
So the new phase or new section that we're building, no, we still have several more phases to go over there. We are, in fact, working on final approvals to get our next phase going here, probably in the next few weeks. And that will include more carriage lane entry-level housing along the south side or further south of what we've already developed. But there is some more room for future development down there, probably 1 or 2 years more.
Yeah, and I think the other thing about that is it would be largely sold out by the time this comes to market. So they kind of work hand in hand that way so that there really wouldn't be much in the way of overlap between the two.
Correct.
I just got a text from Mr. Sayer saying we should hold questions to the agenda item. So we can call the applicants back up. That's okay. It's maybe we need a opinion from the city attorney on when questions should get asked. But with that, we will continue with public comment. Mr. Sayer, are there more registered speakers?
No, this was all.
Okay. With that, we will move on to item 4, which is approval of the minutes from the April 7th, 2021 Plan Commission meeting. Questions, comments, or motions on the minutes?
I'll move approval.
Motion by Alder Cole. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Lytle. Last chance for corrections on the minutes. Seeing no hands. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the April 7th, 2021 Plan Commission meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Next, we'll move on to item 5, which is a public hearing and conditional use permit amendment to allow for the expansion of outdoor seating to be located at 1010 Enterprise Drive. Before we get into the public hearing, Mr. Sayer, can you give us a brief overview?
Sure, this is a request tonight from the Draft House for a conditional use permit to expand their outdoor patio. They currently have an existing outdoor patio that they're looking at making larger. This does require a public hearing before the Plan Commission. As part of that, we did mail public hearing notices to everyone within 200 feet of the property. A public hearing notification sign was posted on the property, and then we also posted a Class 2 public hearing notice in the newspaper. And this is a recommendation tonight to the Common Council.
Thank you for that explanation. With that, I will move that we open a public hearing on this topic. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Tucker Long, I believe. All those in favor of opening the public hearing signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And we're in the public hearing at 6:55 p.m. Mr. Sayer, do we have speakers for this one?
No, we do not.
And if I could ask a brief follow-up, did we get any feedback from the neighbors on this one?
Catherine?
We did have a couple people call in and ask questions. Their concern was mostly that the Draft House was leaving, and once I reassured them that was not the case, they had no more questions.
Okay, well that is good to know. with that, I will move that we close the public hearing. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Hingle, I believe. All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no. And the public hearing is closed at 6:56 p.m. Ms. Holt.
So as Mr. Sayre said, the property is located at 1010 Enterprise Drive at the corner of Cross Country Road and Enterprise Drive. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit amendment to expand their existing outdoor seating with a deck of approximately 16 by 14 feet as more people want to sit outside due to COVID. The shrub will be removed against the building to make room for the deck, which will have a metal fence installed to match the existing railing. We went through the general and specific findings of facts that are required for all conditional use permits, which are met for this project. Staff does recommend that the Plan Commission recommend to the Common Council to approve an amendment to the conditional use permit to expand outdoor seating with a deck at 1010 Enterprise Drive with the following conditions. Alcohol consumption shall be limited to the fenced area as shown on the site plan or inside the establishment. All areas where alcohol is consumed shall be monitored by staff. The fence and gate for the outdoor patio shall comply with the requirements from the police department and the building inspector. The applicant is here tonight to answer any questions from the Plan Commission.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions, comments, or motions on the conditional use permit amendment? Commissioner Tucker Long.
I would like to move that we recommend to the Common Council that they approve a conditional use permit amendment to allow the Draft House to expand their outdoor seating with a deck at 1010 Enterprise Drive with the following two conditions. Alcohol consumption shall be limited to the fenced area as shown on the site plan or inside the establishment. All areas where alcohol is consumed shall be monitored by staff. And B, the fence and gate for the outdoor patio shall comply with the requirements from the police department and building inspector.
Motion by Commissioner Tucker Long, and I will second it. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion to recommend approval of the conditional use permit amendment? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of recommending to the Common Council to grant the conditional use permit amendment to allow for the expansion of outdoor seating to be located at 1010 Enterprise Drive with the conditions specified in the packet, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Next, we'll move on to item 6, which is regarding the precise implementation plan, PIP, for a plan unit development, PUD, that would allow for the construction of 2 3-story buildings containing 100 apartment units located at 1000 Wild Willow Way, Lot 35 of the Woods at Cathedral Point. Before we go into the public hearing, Mr. Sayre, can you give us a brief overview?
Thank you. Once again, this is another public hearing for a precise implementation plan for the northernmost lot in the Woods at Cathedral Point. This lot is at the corner of Range Trail and County Highway M. An APIP requires a public hearing before the Plan Commission. As part of that, we notify people within 200 feet, a Class 2 public hearing notice in the newspaper, and then also a sign on the property. This is a recommendation tonight to the Common Council.
Thank you for that overview. With that, I will move that we open public hearing on this topic. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Tucker Long. All those in favor of opening the public hearing on this topic signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And we're in the public hearing at 7 p.m. Do we have any speakers for this one, Mr. Sayre?
No, we do not.
All right. With that, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing on this topic.
So moved.
Motion by Alder Cole. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Powers, I believe. All those in favor of closing the public hearing on this topic signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And the public hearing is closed at 7 p.m. Ms. Holt.
The property is located in red at 1000 Wild Willow Way, which is a new road in the Woods at Cathedral Point development. In February of 2020, the Woods at Cathedral Point was approved for a general development plan, final plat, and zoning map amendment to construct 100-unit multifamily apartment on 4 acres, 18 twin homes, and 139 single-family homes. This is the precise implementation plan for the 100-unit apartment building, which is the last step in the review process. The applicant is proposing 2 buildings that are 3 stories tall, except for the clubhouse located in the center of the beige buildings on this slide. The setbacks are met, as the setbacks along Range Trail was an exception that was approved as part of the general development plan for the Woods at Cathedral Point. Access to the site is from Wild Willow Way, which is also a tongue twister. The applicant is proposing 171 parking stalls with 104 underground parking and 67 surface stalls. Building 1 is short 2 underground parking stalls to match the number of units, but Building 2 has an excess of 6 underground spaces. The applicant is requesting an exemption to the parking requirements for the building, similar to other apartment complexes, to be reduced from 211 parking stalls to 171. Although this is not required in the current ordinance, the applicant is proposing to run conduit from the building to designated locations in the parking lot and parking garage for electric vehicle charging stations when they are needed in the future. 14 wall-mounted bike stalls and 14 floor-mounted bike stalls are provided in the underground parking garage. This is the first proposal that I've seen since working here that we've ever had for bicycle stalls in an underground parking garage. There are 2 inverted U-racks that are going to be located outside of the buildings. The project requires 2,429 landscaping points, and the applicant has exceeded this requirement with 4,936 points, which is double the requirement per the zoning ordinance. This slide shows only the native trees that the applicant is proposing to plant on the property, which is about half of the plantings. Native shrubbery, grasses, and perennials are not pointed out in this slide, but are included in the planting list. The applicant added additional screening from the parking lot to the neighboring property to the east, as well as evergreens and deciduous trees abutting the Ice Age Trail property, which creates a natural buffer. A photometric plan was submitted as part of the application. The applicant is proposing several 18-foot tall poles and 16-foot tall poles and various spots in the parking areas. All lights are full cutoff LED fixtures, even the wall-mounted fixtures above the garage doors. Staff has found some unlit areas on the site plan that are noted in the staff report, but not on the slide, and recommends the applicant submit a supplemental lighting plan to ensure that all the walkways and bicycle areas are lit without impacting neighboring properties. As discussed, the applicant is proposing 100-unit apartments in 2 buildings that have a twist on the traditional farmhouse. The building contains a pitched roof with the white composite vertical board and batten, and a brick veneer for the base of the building. The traditional farmhouse always has a barn on the property. So the clubhouse is the typical 2-story barn complete with a silo. The clubhouse will contain various amenities such as a business center, meeting rooms, community rooms, exercise, and an outdoor plaza overlooking the pool. The grounds will also have a pool and a fenced area for dogs to play. In general, staff is supportive of the project and the building design. Staff is supportive of the additional items that are not required by the zoning code that are included in the project, such as the electric vehicle charging stations, conduit, the bicycle parking, and the native landscaping. With that, staff does recommend that the Plan Commission recommend to the Common Council to approve a precise implementation plan for 1,000 Wild Willow Way with the following conditions. And that should be on the next slide. Lighting shall not exceed 0.4 foot candles at the property line, and additional lighting should be provided for the walkways into the buildings. Parking will be reduced to a minimum of 171 parking stalls. The applicant is here tonight to answer any questions from the Plan Commission.
Thank you for that explanation. With that, questions, comments, or motions on this proposal? Alder Cole.
I'm assuming these are all market rate and none of them are lower income or anything.
Mr. Sayre?
Yes.
I guess I'll call it myself quick. I do like the running conduit. I like the indoor bike parking. I think that, could be a good feature for people instead of having to potentially put their dirty bike and roll it up to their apartment. So I think that's nice, and I do like the overall landscaping plan as well. But other questions or comments from the Plan Commission or motions? Commissioner Hinkle and then Commissioner Lytle.
Is there normally more than one entrance to something of this size? I'm just wondering about whether there's enough people can get in and out okay with one entrance.
Mr. Sayre?
Yeah, it's from a staff standpoint, it's sufficient. Is there normally? It depends. I mean, it depends on what the project is. Some of the apartments in Scenic Ridge, I think one of those buildings has one entrance point. The challenge when you kind of start getting into some of these parcels, for example, along County Highway M, we're not going to allow access onto M. And then even Range Trail between kind of Wild Willow Way and County Highway M, it's too close to that intersection. So yes, I mean, from a staff level standpoint, 100 units, it's not a problem. If there is any type of backup, it's going to be internal on the site. There shouldn't be a backup. Wild Willow kind of traverses south into the woods at Cathedral Point. It doesn't go east because that's the Ice Age Trail property. At some point, potentially in the long distant future, the city could expand potentially to the south, but there's other ways to get back out. Range Trail is going to be the busier road. So the short of the rambling here is no. From our standpoint, it's sufficient for 100 units.
Commissioner Lytle, and then I believe Commissioner Powers.
Thank you. I guess maybe simple question first. The staff report, Catherine mentioned reducing that the applicant had reduced the parking, but it was also mentioned as a condition of approval, staff wanted the parking designated at 171 stalls. Can you clarify, like, that was the recommendation of the applicant or staff, or you guys came to that conclusion jointly?
Mr. Sayre?
Just matches what's on the site. I believe they have 171. Sometimes we like to note that. We've been trying to note these conditions, sometimes exemptions a little clearer, just because, quite honestly, from a tracking standpoint, long term, it's cleaner for us to do that versus trying to dig through meeting minutes years from now and find that.
Great. And then a quick follow-up. It wasn't clear to me, and I probably should remember this from the overall approvals. What is the method for accessing the Ice Age Trail via this property, or is it not via this property? Folks coming down M right now are, crossing the Ice Age Trail at a really weird spot with no markings, and obviously it's not this project's responsibility to fix that, but I was just seeing where, if they would come through the subdivision, how that access occurs.
I can try to take that one, I think. So on the screen before you, we've got the red property being this parcel here. The house that's kind of shown to the east and the kettle ponds, and you have the Ice Age Trail land. This will all be open space. So as part of the improvements that the developer is making, they'll be making some improvements at the intersection of Range Trail and County Highway M. That will hopefully kind of start addressing that pedestrian crossing kind of concern. I forget off the top of my head if that's going to have the flashing beacons or not. I don't remember that, but I know there's going to be signage and markings added as part of that, but I don't remember exactly what those details are. I know that's spelled out in our development agreement with them, and our Public Works Department has been working with the engineering staff to work on that detail, but that's going to be completed as part of that, the road improvements up there, which I believe will be happening at some point this year.
So people would have the option of crossing M at Range Trail and then accessing through the subdivision. And I know that's not something you have necessarily handy, Adam, but if you could recall roughly how that access would flow.
Yeah, you can kind of see the crossing here. It's on the west side of Range Trail, and then they would cross Range Trail here and then kind of walk across the front of the property, which I believe is a multi-use path. Ultimately, that will kind of end up on the city-owned property and then I believe dump into the Ice Age Trail property. The Ice Age Trail property wouldn't have that multi-use path on it, but it would get you a lot closer than what it is today to that kind of farther western access point. It wouldn't get you to the parking lot. Uh-oh, did we lose somebody?
It looks like, yeah.
It wouldn't get you to the parking lot, but it would get you to kind of that western access point that's on that property. A lot closer than what it is today.
So you wouldn't have folks, because there still is that island of private land to the east on the south side of M, but they would cut south at the eastern edge of the subdivision to access the Ice Age Trail.
Yeah, so it would be
Sorry, dense about this.
Yeah, the crossing, my understanding would be here, would be the crossing. If you can see the cursor, then you'd cross Range here, and then you could traverse along through here, and I believe the path potential will go up to that point, which is the Ice Age Trail property. And at that point, you know, it'd be more just probably in the ditch area. But this is all owned, this is owned by the city. That's city-owned, controlled property as part of the development. So that house is gone, and that's all open space with the intent, obviously, for expanded Ice Age Trail.
All right, thank you.
There's no private property between this and Ice Age Trail property.
Great.
Commissioner Powers.
Thanks. Yeah, I second Commissioner Lytle's comments around the Ice Age Trail there being a little dicey trying to cross the road. But it is, I think I was missing that last point about that house being gone. So now that I know the house is gone, that helps explain it. Also, I wanted to bring up the traffic concerns. I do think kind of following Adam's comments around it seems sufficient to me that there's going to be mostly right turns coming out of there, several right turns until you get to M, and then I think most of the traffic will split either towards Epic or towards the right towards Madison. So I think it's probably going to be not too big of an issue, given that you're looking at a couple, 100 cars maybe every morning or whatever. I think it probably sorts itself out. And then I wanted to express support for the actual kind of visual of the product. I wasn't here, I don't think, when that was first discussed, but I think it's a nice looking end result of what they've kind of planned. And it looks like the farm's kind of in the middle of the two buildings. It looks like a nice aesthetic to me.
Other questions, comments, or motions from the Planning Commission? Commissioner Tucker-Long.
So looking at this, with the parking, is that like allowing the decrease in parking? Did I hear you say that that's pretty similar to other apartment complexes that we've approved in this city? Or I'm just thinking that, decreasing the parking here, there's not really a lot of streets around to park on. And considering that house, like, are the yellow properties filled in yet?
Mr. Sayre?
That's my other wondering.
No. I mean, so just to the south of this, the twin homes, those have not been built yet. Obviously, a lot of the single-family homes have been built. The parking ratios at that 1.71 stalls That's higher than some that we have in town. That's, you know, lower than some as well. So it is kind of in that sweet spot. I believe that's, Ms. Holt, correct me if I'm wrong, is that consistent with the new ordinance that we're looking at doing, the parking on the property? Yes. So I mean, the parking, what we're looking at is consistent kind of with the new code that we've put in place. So I mean, 1.7, I don't have any concerns with that. I think the property across the street here from City Hall is closer to 1.5, and we haven't had any issues with that as well. So I don't think you're going to have any problems here.
Okay, that sounds good. The other thing I'm wondering about is the parking lot looks very close to the last row of houses there. Did you say those are twin homes?
Correct. Those are twin homes, and that's one of the items that, and I can pop this back up, that we
Okay.
had them increase the amount of landscaping kind of adjacent to there as well. And those homes have not been built yet either.
Sure.
So whoever's going to obviously move in there, and Viridian obviously is the builder developer, so they'll be building those as well. They could add some additional landscaping, but they did kind of add more landscaping based upon kind of staff had some comments on that too.
Sure. So I'm wondering if they could like put like a berm or something and then, you know, put the landscaping on top of that just to make it a little more of a screen. But also I'm wondering too with those, are those two like water ponds right next to the parking lot above the twin homes? Yeah, those there.
Yep.
Are we worried at all about those like leaking down into those twin home backyards?
Carla?
Just because it kind of seems to be a hill from like, you know, from like M Range Trail down currently, and maybe they're going to make it not a hill, but
I mean,
it seems like.
Sorry,
Sorry, go ahead, yeah.
We'll check that. I mean, the city ordinance covers all that. So, like, you need to have enough storage for a 100-year event plus a foot of freeboard with an emergency overflow that goes into a safe area. It doesn't go like into someone's house or whatever. So that's something that we'll check for sure once we have like the plans, and we'll compare to what's to the south there too.
Okay, sounds good.
Other questions, comments, or motions? Commissioner Hingle and Commissioner Lytle?
I motion to recommend that the Plan Commission, motion that recommend that the Common Council approve the precise implementation plan for 1000 Wild Willow Way with the following conditions. Lighting shall not exceed 0.4 foot candles at the property line, and additional lighting should be provided for the walkways into the buildings, and parking will be reduced to a minimum of 171 parking stalls.
Motion by Commissioner Hingle. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lytle. Let's see. Motion before the body. I had Commissioner Lytle next.
No, that was just the raising my hand at the same time for the motion with Commissioner Hingle.
Got it. Commissioner Tucker-Long?
One thing I was just thinking is I don't see any kids' play area outlined here, and since it's on two pretty busy roads, and maybe I just missed it, but it's on two pretty busy roads, and if we've also got twin homes there, those may have kids as well. It might be nice to have some sort of play area where they don't have to cross Range Trail to get to it.
Mr. Sayre?
So there is a park right across the street, right across Wild Willow Way. The park, it's hard to see on this one. I might be able to pull a different map, but the park is actually it is hard to see. There's a park right here. That's a city park that I believe is getting improved this year. So it's kind of within eye shot, I guess, of kind of where it is.
Okay, perfect then.
Commissioner Powers?
Yeah, I was just gonna say from the Parks Commission that we just approved the name of the park. It's Wild Willow Way Park. And we thought it took a long time to come up with that, sadly. And it is getting put in this year, so it should be all set. And it's kind of aimed at younger children, knowing that there was an apartment going up there and some of the smaller houses were around there.
Are there questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no hands, all those in favor of recommending to the Common Council to approve the PIP for a PUD for two 3-story buildings containing 100 apartment units located at 1000 Wild Willow Way with the conditions specified in the packet, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no? And that motion passes. Next, we'll move on to item 7, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the annexation of approximately 19.708 acres to the city of Verona, located at 7291 County PD, Good Shepherd Lutheran Church. Ms. Holt.
The 19.70 acres is located in yellow, which includes the intersection of Northern Lights, County Highway PD before the intersection of Woods Road, and all of 272291 County Highway PD, known as Good Shepherd Lutheran Church. The property abuts the city of Verona's future parkland, which is the former quarry, located to the south, and wooded residential lots to the east that are in the town of Verona. The neighborhood plan recommended that the property continue to be used as a church. The police department requested that when Good Shepherd annexed into the city of Verona, that the entire right-of-way for County Highway PD in this area be annexed, as well as the entire intersection of Northern Lights. This will make determining jurisdiction for crashes easier as it will be handled by the City of Verona Police Department. The Department of Administration has reviewed the annexation and determined it is in the public interest. The zoning ordinance requires all lands annexed to the city have a holding zone of rural agriculture. As part of the zoning and sign code that we'll review later tonight, this property would be rezoned to public institution, which is consistent with other places of worship in this proposed ordinance. With that, staff recommends the Plan Commission recommend that the Common Council approve the request to annex approximately 19.708 acres of land to the city of Verona.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions, comments, or motions on this item? Commissioner Lytle.
Thanks. I'm probably the person who always asks this question. Is the property currently being serviced in our urban service area for water and sewer?
Mr. Sayre?
It is on well and septic. The plans would be continue well and septic until services are, well, water is available now, sewer is not. But the thought process is, if and when the septic fails, they would potentially have the ability to hook into city services at that point. But they aren't required to do it. So that's a item that we've tackled as part of the annexation agreement of just what the timing of that is going to be. But as of right now, they don't have a need for it, but I'm sure someday they will.
Yeah, I know maybe 5-10 years ago, we had this big debate about whether any part of the city should be on well and septic. This seems like a pre-existing site for a very specific use, and so I don't see any issue with an annexation that doesn't include a service area expansion, but just wanted to clarify.
Commissioner Tucker-Long?
Are we annexing this for anything in particular? Like, is it just its time on the plan, or is it because of another development, or why are we annexing this?
Mr. Sayre?
Yeah, we've actually been talking to them a couple of years now, I want to say, and then COVID hit, and that really slowed everything down. I think the big thing right now is they are not in the city. The comment I've heard is they want a kind of a greater voice, potentially a greater say in things that happen in the city. Obviously, there's development that's getting close to them, if not already by them. That was kind of one of the big reasons. I know, we worked with them before on some special event permits that have been kind of in the city as well. That might be part of it as well. But we've talked about a sign, some future sign needs that we may or may not be able to accommodate as part of an ordinance. And then we're working with them right now on just the building inspection side. We're quicker than what the state can offer them as well too. But I think the big thing is just, you've got the city to the south, the city to the east. We're talking about development that's in this area tonight. We've talked about development across the street. Larger voice, larger say in those issues. But no, there's no big pressing need. That's the big reason why.
Questions, comments, or motions on this one? Commissioner Powers.
I'll make a motion that we recommend to the Common Council approve the request to annex approximately 19.708 acres of land to the city of Verona.
Motion by Commissioner Powers. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Henker. Motion before the body. Questions, comments on the motion to recommend annexation? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of recommending that the Common Council approve annexation of approximately 19.708 acres to the city of Verona located at 7291 County Highway PD, Good Shepherd Lutheran Church, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. We'll move on to item 8, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the initial review to develop approximately 142 acres of land with 74 carriage lane accessed homes, 218 street accessed homes, 16 twin homes, and 92 Haven twin homes located north of County Highway PD and west of Shady Oak Lane called the Marty property. Mr. Sayer.
Thank you. I'll try to keep my presentations short. I know Brian and Chris provided a pretty good overview of the project, so I'll try to keep my comments and I guess my overview to the shortest amount possible. This is on here for an initial concept review tonight. There is no action by the Plan Commission. This is an opportunity for the Plan Commission to provide feedback to the applicants. At the end of the presentation here, we have kind of 3, in our eyes, kind of key questions that we're looking for feedback and answers to regarding this project. So with that, the property in question is highlighted in yellow on the screen before you. It's approximately 142 acres of land. In red is the Good Shepherd property that was just recommended for annexation, just for comparison purposes. And then the orangish color, those are the existing city boundaries, and the bluish color is the city of Madison. And anything that is not highlighted or anything that is not surrounded in a color, that is in the town of Verona. The project is part of our Northwest Neighborhood Plan. This was adopted in 2018. The plan has a lot of good information in it. This land was intended to be what was classified as low-density suburban residential. That was basically strictly our kind of one of our residential kind of classifications in this area. And the intent of this is what the lots here would be range from 8,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet. There'd be a variety of setbacks, some smaller setbacks of up to 20 feet to 30 feet in distance, just trying to provide that variety of kind of housing character. And the intent of that was to make that a walkable neighborhood. The applicant's project right now is at 5.93 dwelling units per acre. This is a net density measurement. Density is measured by gross and by net. Net is done by taking out the number of street right-of-ways, parks, stormwater, and other open spaces. Gross is if you just take 142 acres and divide the units by 142 acres. So the net, when subtracting those out, is just under 6. The gross, I believe, is closer to 2 or 3. So density is always a function of how are you measuring it, which can be very subjective as we kind of talk about densities anywhere. In general, the plan didn't meet the intent of having a maximum of 5 dwelling units per acre. Once again, they're at about 6 net, significantly less when you look at gross. So it does meet the intent. The plan also does have a 100-foot kind of setback buffer area along County Highway PD. The intent of that was to provide a buffer to the adjacent lands from the south. Once again, Brian and Chris provided a pretty good overview of this. I'm not going to go into much detail. They do have those 2 access points onto Shady Oak Lane. Shady Oak Lane, if the project moves forward, that's a road that the city is going to have some detailed conversations with the town on. That's currently a town road that when we start kind of splitting the jurisdiction of these roads down the middle, it creates challenges for both the city and township. And that's one of the items we'd have to work with the town on to kind of work through the details on that. The applicant would have an access point onto County Highway PD. Once again, that's an access point we'd have to take a look at just to line that up in the correct location from a transportation and access standpoint. The use itself on the property, it is consistent with the kind of the neighborhood plan that's in this area. The property currently is in the town of Verona. I know we did send out today a letter from the town chairman kind of outlining some questions and concerns that the town has. This is an area of B of our boundary agreement with the town. Area B does give the city the full ability, if we choose to do so, annex and develop the land. That is allowed by the agreement, and that is just the agreement allows for it. We have multiple kind of areas in the agreement which I can kind of get into if you'd like, but the bottom line is this is an area B which does allow the city to annex the property and to allow development to occur in the city. We have received some public comments on this. Those have been provided off to the Plan Commission kind of over the course of this. So if you have any questions on those, I'm happy to answer those, but just to acknowledge that we have received a few emails. Even immediately before this meeting, we had an email from somebody as well. So hopefully you've all received those. In general, staff is supportive of the development of this property. This is in our neighborhood plan. It was planned for residential. Generally, what the applicant has put together here is consistent with our Northwest neighborhood plan. We do, from a staff level standpoint, appreciate kind of the Haven product that the applicant has talked about that is geared towards more seniors. That's an item that comes up on a regular basis that staff hears from people that are seniors or older looking for housing options in the city and looking for options that kind of have services provided for them. So that is something that is definitely a need in the city. I think from a staff standpoint, we're looking for kind of answers on 3 main questions here. I think the first one, the answer is, does the Plan Commission support development in this area? That's obviously the big question of, should we be developing this property? And are you supportive of this? As Chris Ellers mentioned tonight, this is a longer kind of term project. I mean, we're looking up to 2023 probably as a starting point for this. Currently in the city, we have pretty much 2 active subdivisions underway. We have the Woods at Cathedral Point, which is a Viridian project, and then we have Kettle Creek North. Those are the 2 active ones. We have some lots in Hometown Grove, but those are the ones that are currently active today. Kettle Creek North probably has a few more phases left into it. The Woods probably has some time on it as well. I don't have an update on where Whispering Coves is at. So I think as the Plan Commission kind of looks at this long term, I think it's important to kind of keep in mind of just, as the city grows, just be mindful of that. If we're looking at additional housing options, as of right now, some of our options are limited. We have talked about other land previously east of the city. That was in the Whalen Road and Grandview area. There was a project that was proposed 2-3 years ago in that area. I know the comment from the Plan Commission or the council at the time was, yep, we'll develop that, just not today. It was more of in a longer term period. So just something to keep in mind as we look at the overall city of just, where are we growing? That's always an important question for the reason of you never, and maybe you do, but ideally you never want to put yourself in a position where you only have one kind of subdivision happening at one time. So just, like I said, the key on this one is is this the right time for it? The second question is, assuming the answer to the first one is yes, is the overall design and the amount of density on the property is supportive? Generally, are you comfortable with what the developer is showing you? And the third answer, and this is a question staff will always ask you, is if the answer to the previous question is yes, do you support private alleys? And that's a conversation that we've had multiple times over the years, and it's always a question when we see the alley product, we'll bring that up to the Plan Commission. Obviously, the applicants are here tonight. They'd be happy to answer any questions, and staff is willing to happy to answer any questions as well. Once again, this is the opportunity to provide feedback. We're very early in the process. Any feedback you have, so the developer is appreciated by staff, so we kind of know what direction we should help take this. And I'm sure the developer would be appreciative of any feedback as well, just so they know what direction they should be going.
Thank you for that explanation. Alder Cole.
Just for my own knowledge, how do carriage lanes, like access, how does that affect setbacks? Like, just for my own knowledge.
Mr. Sayre?
So how Viridian has developed this previously, they have a master development plan that they submit as part of a plan development project. And in that, they specify exactly what the setback of that garage is going to be. So a carriage lane is a fancy term for alley. And you have that garage that abuts the alleyway, and there's a setback off the alleyway because the alley itself is its own lot. And I believe the setback is approximately about 5 feet, if I'm not mistaken. So you have a setback, but and maybe it's not much of a setback. I guess I haven't looked at it in a while, but the plan development document dictates that. And one of the advantages, I guess, Viridian has done this in countless spots over the years now, so they have a setback that has worked. I mean, so it is kind of what it is, but it's all laid out in their kind of master planning documents. And as I'm rambling here, I know Brian Munson put his hand up. Do you want him to help answer this question since he has done hundreds of units?
Sure.
Yeah, if Alder Cole, requests the applicant to answer, then yeah.
All right. Well, Adam, thank you for bringing me in. I'd be happy to answer that because, as you mentioned, we've been building carriage lane homes longer than I care to admit, but going back more than 20 years in the city of Madison. Really, to break it down, the turning movements in the alleys are identical to a turning movement in a parking lot. They're designed intentionally to do a couple of things. One is to make sure that any vehicle can get in and out of the garages. It's coupled up with the design of the alley itself, the cross-section of the right-of-way of the alley, the pavement, and then the garage placement to balance a lot of competing interests in that kind of configuration. So you've got to get all the vehicles in. You want to clearly signal that the alley is an alley. It's not intended for through travel. So the width of that matters, the placement of the garage matters. So it just clearly helps signal appropriate travel speeds. We want people going 5 to 10 miles an hour in an alley because I can tell you in built out neighborhoods, we see lots of basketball games going on in there, lots of kids learning how to bike. It's really a usable space for the residents that abut it. We want to make sure the traffic is moving appropriately. The final piece we balance in the design of the alley and the garage placement is utility placements. So making sure that we know how the garage opening works for where the transformer pedestals go, where all the different utilities come in and out of the buildings at the rear lot line. That all kind of comes together. And again, it's something we've worked on for more than 20 years to really get the details down to make sure that it's easily plowed. If there's any services delivered, whether it's garbage pickup or things like that, that there's ample room for that. But again, that it's a safe, low-speed environment for the houses that abut it, and everybody can get in their garage.
Thank you.
Commissioner Powers and then Commissioner Hingle.
Yeah, I had a couple of thoughts, I guess not necessarily related to alleys. One was around the twin homes and the senior living idea there, which I'm very supportive of. I think my concern, I guess, with it at this area in the current time is that, so I'm a senior living out there. I have this home where I get some services, but I'm pretty far away from the city. Now, I know we'd technically be counting them as part of the city, but realistically, you're not walking anywhere from there to do any sort of activity other than things that are provided on site. So that would be my first thought around that aspect of it. I know there's nothing that the developer can do necessarily about that unless things grow up around there. But then the second part, this is more of a question for, I guess, the rest of the commission, is with several other really large things coming online in the next couple of years here, and maybe this is more of an Adam question. I don't know how the equation goes for, how many people can our high school support? I mean, I know we just built a brand new, beautiful high school, but at some point, if we have the amount of apartments we've approved and the amount of, somewhat of the amount of houses we've developed, I would assume we're going to start pushing the limits on that if people start moving into these places in the next 5 to 7 to 10 years.
Mr. Sarah, do you want to weigh in on that?
I can start, and I actually might defer to Chris Sellers, who actually met with superintendent. I did send this off to the superintendent. He has had a couple of questions for me about the timing of the project. He didn't express any kind of concerns about the project to me. I didn't explicitly ask for those. When we get these projects, we usually send them off as more of an FYI, as a conversation starter. If they have detailed questions, they usually follow up with us. But I do know that Chris did meet with the superintendent. I'm not sure if you want me to bring him in to answer that, Luke, or not.
Yeah, for clarity's sake, if we could bring Mr. Ellers in.
While he's coming in, we have something in our ordinance that I think is a maximum number of housing permits that we'll issue on a kind of from a yearly standpoint. It's at 125. We've never hit that. I mean, that's been in place, I think, from the late 90s, maybe early 2000s. That's never been an issue for us. It's typically not an issue because of these developments are phased, and most developers, especially nowadays after the recession, don't fully plat and build these out just because there's a lot of cost, and Chris can speak to this too, but there's a lot of cost to it as well. So you typically get these in phases. You get them in chunks of 20 to 30 and maybe sometimes 40 lots, but it's also from a market absorption standpoint. So you don't have, just because you have a project that has X amount of units, it doesn't mean those are all coming online tomorrow. They're all phased in over a time period. But I'm sorry, Chris, you can answer your conversation with the superintendent.
Sure, and actually there's it's pretty interesting is after you do enough of these, you get to learn the science behind this and how the school districts plan their growth, and they hire a consultant who runs these reports, but it's, and they'll work hand in hand with the consultant. But first I did meet with Dean and the Dean of the school district, had no reservations on this, and explained to him timing and how this would be brought on, and then that gets into a greater discussion of the type of housing you bring on has a different ratio for how many kids will be in that house. Not every house is 2.5 kids. Again, our Haven or our 55 and older would be 0 kids into the school district. On the flip side, the move up, the first time level move up or entry level is a ratio multiplier of 2 to 3 for elementary school, and then it goes from there based on size and demographics. So we give all this information to the analysts that the school district hires, and it's once or twice a year, and we work with them, and then they can plug those numbers in to decide where that means or what that means for capacity's sake. So there is some math and science behind it.
Commissioner Powers?
Yeah, great. I figured there was some sort of algorithm to figure out what the right amount of people to bring into the school district is. I was just more curious, not necessarily from the developer standpoint, because I assume they're doing that kind of legwork already, but from our standpoint as a city, do we have that same meeting with all the other developments and all the other apartments that we've approved? Now, I know apartments aren't probably going to bring quite the amount of people in to the school district as some of the housing units, but at the same time, if the school district's only aware of, a quarter or a fifth of the ones we're approving, I was just curious, how thorough is that?
Mr. Sayre?
Yeah, we work with the district on their student projections. That's something that I think we did a couple of years ago with Mark Roffers. We look at our growth areas, we look at our redevelopment areas, and as part of that, we identify here are areas that are going to be redeveloped with apartments, and here are areas that are going to grow with single family, and then we try to establish target densities or what we think the density might be based upon the units. I can say as soon as we give that information, we know we're going to be wrong because it's a guess, but it's the best kind of guess that we can make. And they update that 5 to 10 years, I want to say. They've been updating them on a more regular basis. I've done that now. I've been here 8 years, and I've done that twice now in my time period here. So, I mean, they update it on a pretty consistent basis, it seems. And I think that's partially driven by the growth here in Verona, but also over Fitchburg as well. A lot of the growth in Fitchburg is driving some of the needs in the district, too. But we sit in those, and that's part of the reason why anytime there's a project that comes in, we send that off. pre-COVID, we also had quarterly meetings with the school district. It's called their IDAC meetings. And at those meetings, the city was there, the town was there, the school district, and Fitchburg, and we would talk about development, growth, road issues, a whole gamut of issues as well. And obviously, COVID has kind of wrecked that. But the intent is to try to get in front of this stuff so no one's taken by surprise.
The other question I had, if I still can keep going, on different route was I saw a lot of comments from I think people who wrote in that were concerned about the natural landscape and maintaining that natural landscape. And my impression driving past it is that it is a cornfield currently. Is that not accurate? So I feel like it's worth pointing out that cornfields aren't natural either, that the natural beauty of that landscape has probably been gone for many years. Well, it's still wild in some regards. It's not necessarily a natural landscape that's left there at this point. It's seemed to be plowed over a number of times.
Commissioner Hingle.
I was wondering for alleys, if they need to be repaired, who's responsible for that?
Mr. Sayre?
So in previous conversations, so at the Woods at Cathedral Point, those are private alleyways that's maintained by the homeowners association. So that would be a responsibility for the people living there.
And the people living there would be required to join the homeowners association and pay the fees so that would be maintained.
Yeah, they would have, I believe, a common ownership on that outlot.
Okay. And I don't think this is a comment for the developer, but maybe just in general, concern about commercial things that people can get to. This is kind of way out in the middle of nowhere at the moment. Maybe 10 years from now, maybe there'll be some commercial opportunities that people can walk to, but I don't know how much the city thinks about that, if that's our responsibility to consider, hey, can this neighborhood get to restaurants and coffee shops and the gas station and so forth.
Mr. Sayre?
Yeah, so big picture wise, as part of our planning effort, we had kind of concentrated that commercial mostly east of Shady Oak, a little bit west of Shady Oak as well, and that was kind of identified as kind of the commercial area for this land. And one of the big reasons behind that is obviously there's a lot of traffic that goes down Northern Lights, and then as you go west, traffic drops off considerably. So big picture wise, the goal is to have that kind of commercial east of the site, but not on this property. That was kind of, as we looked at this, that was the most appropriate place to put it.
Alder Cole and then myself.
How far away are we from getting any proposed, any commercial out there? Because I agree with Commissioner Hinkle, it's just kind of stuck out there right now. It seems kind of out of place or out of order of the way things should be going in that area, personally.
Mr. Sayre?
Yeah, I mean the property east of here, which is the one at the kind of across the street from Northern Lights, it is in the market. It was sold at sheriff's sale, I believe, 6, 10, 12 months ago. I don't know, just if and when that's going to develop. There's a pretty large asking price on that property right now. From an order standpoint, I mean, that's always a challenge in any type of development. It usually doesn't kind of go in the exact order you really prefer it to go. And a lot of that is dictated by landowners. A lot of that sometimes is dictated by asking price as well. Big picture wise, from at least as staff looks at this, this does fit kind of the areas that we've looked at. But it gets difficult if you kind of say, well, we're going to go in the kind of the order down the road here, just because water is east of here, but ultimately the sewer is west of here as well. So if you develop the stuff east as well, you run into some infrastructure challenges as well too. There's going to be no perfect order out here because the utilities aren't exactly lining up where you'd want it for any property out here. So, from a like I said, from a staff standpoint, it fits what's in the plan. Is it short term? Is it the only piece out there? Yes. But that's going to be whatever happens out here. It's going to be kind of the same way, no matter when that's going to be.
All right, I'm calling on myself next. In general, I don't like private alleyways. I think, Veridian has laid out a plan for them to be maintained, but there are certain spots in the city where there have been private roads and they have not been maintained, and I would argue that they've gotten to the point, at least in the past, where, things like street signs disappear, and you think of an emergency vehicle responding, to some health emergency, some fire, whatever. There's no street signs, streets aren't maintained, maybe people are parking illegally and blocking it, but it's private, so the police can't enforce it. And there's been issues. So in general, I don't like private alleyways just because I think that over, 20, 30 years, and maybe none of us will be sitting at the table 30 years from now, but they can cause issues over their lifetime. I would also, kind of in line with what I said during public comment, I would say that I would expect all garages to have basically have the 240 volt outlets there, so they can be compatible with electric vehicles. And I guess my overall comment, I'm open to this kind of development. I think there is a huge demand for single family homes in the city of Verona. We have, as noted, both here and at the council, we've approved a lot of apartments. But as far as, where single family homes, can be built, we're in somewhat limited space in the city. And obviously that's a policy decision. But, if we do limit supply, prices are going to go up. And I've heard from a lot of people who are either shocked because of the way their property taxes have gone up because of their home valuations, or people who want to move into our city, whether they live, whether they want to go to the school district, whether they work at Epic or one of our other employers. There's a huge demand for single family homes in the city. And so we have to, I think, decide what, if anything, we're going to do about it. But those are my thoughts at the moment. Commissioner Lytle and Commissioner Tucker-Long.
Thank you. I guess one question that's been nagging at my brain a little bit, Adam and Catherine, are there any issues with age restricting housing, like 50 and up, like the Haven twin home concept? Is that either in our current or proposed zoning code? Any issues with that from a ordinance standpoint?
Mr. Sayre?
You mean enforcement of that?
Well, maybe that was the memory I was having in terms of how, someone buys it and then lets their kids live there or that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, from a city standpoint, we don't have anything codified. The typical way you see those enforced, quite honestly, is usually on the rental side. When you get above, I think it's 55 and up, you have potential tax credits. Obviously we're not talking about that. I think, what they're trying to gear it towards of kind of those additional enhanced services that obviously drives potentially a clientele or buyer who's attracted to those services. But from a strictly city staff standpoint, we don't have a mechanism to enforce that long term. That wouldn't be possible from our standpoint.
Okay, and then just for the more general feedback you all were asking for, it was I was a little surprised to see the feedback coming in until I realized it was all folks who were moving into the town on large 5-acre plus lots, and of course, if I were doing that, I'd be concerned about that kind of density to the south of me, but I think the density makes sense given what we're trying to do as a city in terms of growing smartly, growing as much as we can to support affordable housing. As Commissioner Powers pointed out, this isn't an area where we're going to have to cut down a bunch of trees that maybe were there for hundreds of years. So it's another reason why the density here makes more sense to me. Access directly onto PD as well. I'm still a little concerned about the preponderance of alley access. I feel like we're kind of seeing how that works out here on Range Trail at a larger scale, and would like to have some experience under our belt before we approve a bunch more of that. But you know, the developer clearly has many more years of experience than we have in Verona, so I'd be willing to hear more arguments about that as we get into more detailed reviews. But overall supportive. Yeah, I wish the timeline were a little different, but it seems like between the intersection of M and PD, and then you know, some more development to the east of here on the north side of PD, it won't be an island for very long. And I think about some of the houses built out on Scenic Ridge. They were really quite away from anything in the way of, and still are, in the way of services and retail. But that's kind of what happens when you're a growing city and the residential leads ahead of some of the commercial and retail.
Commissioner Tucker-Long.
Adam, you were talking about density numbers being a bit subjective and hard to like finally calculate, but is the 5.8 or 5.9 you were talking about, like, what kind of density do we call that? Because I noticed that a lot of the complaints we got were saying they were concerned about the high density when it's supposed to be low density to medium density. And I'm just wondering, what are those density numbers?
Yeah, so the plan identifies up to 5 dwelling units per acre as part of that low density classification. I think it's a little bit, as Commissioner Lytle said, I think a lot of the comments are coming in from people that do have larger lots that are north of here. They're, you know, roughly 2 acres or larger in size, about there. So in comparison to that, yeah, I mean, an 8,000 square foot lot, I mean, you could fit, you know, 5 of those into 1 acre. I mean, this is for comparison's sake purposes. So I mean, it's from a city standpoint, this is pretty typical for us. I mean, this isn't, you know, they're not looking at that the whole thing's not, you know, 4,000 square foot lots that are entirely alley loaded. They've got a mix in here of a variety of what they have. So this is, like I said, this is more typical of the woods at Cathedral Point. I think, you know, that was one of the comments in the presentation they made. So, you know, the density is consistent with the plan. I think it's also consistent with just with what we do see in the city.
Sounds good. And then my last comment was just sort of echoing the 50 plus restrictive housing, the Haven housing. It seems like a really strange place there for me because, you know, that kind of housing, it seems like they're not going to want to be like right on Epic's doorstep. And, you know, it seems being so close to Epic, it's like prime for Epic employees, and to block a bunch of it off for 50 plus. I mean, not that 50 plus people can't work at Epic, but just, you know, it seems like the kind of people who want to live very close to Epic are the younger set, not necessarily maybe more the managers and stuff, like the higher ups that would maybe be older. So I don't know, it just seems kind of a strange place to put it right there. And plus, you know, all these busy roads to cross, and it's nowhere near a grocery store, it's nowhere near, you know, and even though those things are coming, I'm wondering, what is the draw for the 50 plus crowd to live there now when they're being built before all of those amenities move in, on the hope that those amenities will come, you know? I don't know.
I have a question for the developers. For the Haven product that's targeted for senior, is that going to be like age restricted, like you're asking for people's birth certificates, or is that a marketing thing where it's marketed to seniors, but if someone who is 25 and it's like, I don't really want to deal with the yard, can I buy a small house, would you sell to them, I guess?
That's the beauty of it. No, it's not restricted. We can enforce this kind of the age targeting who we're marketing towards. We have a different set of covenants, codes, and restrictions for this group, and it starts with just, again, we really try to to avoid any, turning into a rental community or Airbnb. And so we've put language in our CCNRs that prohibits any of that. And what we've found is we've built these all over the county now, even as far out as Wanakee, and that it's different mindset now than what we used to think of, senior living 20, 30 years ago, where you retire and then you go to your Sun City out in Arizona or Florida, and you're amongst a bunch of 55-year-old plus active adults, and everybody, drives golf carts, and they only commingle with people who are 55. This is a different generation, and nowadays people want to commingle with the younger generation. It keeps them alive, it keeps them active, and it keeps them communicating with the younger demographics. So we really try to integrate it within the neighborhood, and they want to be close to their kids or their relatives. But they may only live there 6 months a year. They may have a place down in Naples or in Scottsdale or something, but their kids are living and have kids, that live in Verona, and they go to school in Verona, and they play sports in Verona, and they want to be near them in the summertime. So it really is a desirable kind of product for that type of buyer.
Thank you for clarifying. Other questions or comments on the project from the Planning Commission? Commissioner Powers, I believe.
I will say that the way it is laid out right now, the Haven homes are close to the pickleball courts and the park, so it's a pretty easy walking distance to the things that within that community they are going to take advantage of, I would think, the most. And just to kind of point out a little bit from our past experiences on the other side of town with the other Viridian development, actually, a lot of the stuff that has come up over there is probably a direct result of some of those houses going up. So obviously Costco coming in and a lot of stuff that's surrounding that area. So as Adam was saying, I felt the same thing when I drove through there. It did seem like it might be a little weird seeing 400 houses over here, but at the same time, if we're looking at a 8 to 10 year view, then there probably will be more things near it as you get closer and closer to that timeline.
Other questions or comments from the Planning Commission? Going once, going twice. Mr. Sayer, did the Planning Commission kind of address all the topics that we needed to address?
I think so. I mean, I'm hearing nobody say no to it, so that's kind of what I'm hearing, and I'm not hearing anyone really object to the density as of right now. And I think the alleys, I heard a little more skepticism on that, but I think I've got enough, and then this will ultimately go to the council next Monday just for the same kind of feedback. So, I mean, if anyone has anything that comes up between now and then, I guess let Catherine and myself know.
Great. And with that, we will move on to the next item. We'll move on to item 9, which is a public comment regarding a comprehensive amendment to the Verona Zoning Code, Title 13 of the Code of Ordinances, and map amendments to the official zoning map for the properties in the city of Verona. Do we need to open a public hearing on this, Mr. Sayer, or is it just open?
It's open. We didn't receive any public comments so once again. So I think, and I invited Jackie into the meeting as well. We did have, and I'm not sure, we didn't really talk about this, Catherine. Am I taking this or are you taking this? Or is Jackie taking me? I'm taking it? Okay. I can take it with Jackie. I guess, we did have a comment from, which we passed along. I think it was in the packet or was passed along. We had a comment from Smart Growth Madison discussing kind of the charging station, the EV charging station. And they had concerns about having to exempt those for retail and restaurant uses because customers do not park their vehicles long enough for the charge to actually be useful unless there's a rapid charging charger in that location. So, I mean, they were looking at trying to potentially, exempt those types of uses to it. So that's one item that it's up to the Planning Commission as you kind of talk about this. There are other items in here as well, which I can real briefly go through. Effective date, we made some changes to the effective date in 1-11. That's more legalese of just looking at, anyone who was approved before those with plans, et cetera. They basically have 1 year to kind of get those started to work on those. We did put the fence language back in. We talked about that at the last month's Plan Commission meeting, so we've kind of put that back to how it is today. We made a slight tweak in the lighting. These are to wall-mounted access lights, just making sure that people can't point those directly up into the sky, and just trying to ensure that we're going to cut down on that glare and have that pointed downward. So that was it. I don't think we received any other comments besides that, Catherine, did we? So that's a summary of the comments. I mean, you can, if you want, you can move on. Unless you have comments on the comments, we can move on to the actual agenda item.
I have one brief question about the Smart Growth Madison. Did we get any pushback from developers or anyone else? Because like I look at, I believe Sugar River Pizza and potentially a couple other places, and they, you know, they weren't required, but they built charging stations. So I think I have not had a chance to follow up with Smart Growth Madison, but I'm a little shocked by their feedback just because I don't necessarily know where it's coming from, and because I would have expected, you know, if developers thought it wasn't helpful, but it seems like they're building it on their own right now.
Yeah, we sent it off. I forget how many developers we sent it off to, but I know Catherine sent it off to a handful, and it's the ones we there's no surprise. It's ones that we usually work with, and we really didn't get many comments, which is good, and it's also scary in the sense of, well, I mean, it's scary in the sense of, you know, you like to get the comments now, so when the projects come in, we can avoid any types of arguments or discussions, because probably what's going to happen here is, assuming this is adopted, there's going to be, and no disrespect, Jackie, there's going to be some issues in there that just, you know, we didn't think about, or boy, we looked at that differently, and now trying to apply it is challenging. And, you know, there's probably going to be a list of changes 6 months to a year from now that we're going to have to make of things that come up, just because we're not perfect. But yeah, we didn't get many comments from developers as a whole, even though we sent them off. And I don't know if that's because they're busy or if we did a good job. I don't know how to take it, to be honest with you. Catherine has something to add.
Ms. Holt?
We did have a couple of developers who were in the process, like their GDP was approved. Old National Bank Classic site and the Steve Brown Apartments for the elementary school site. And they were just trying to get clarification of how the new process works, and since they're already in it, how it could affect their previous approvals. So that's why some of the effective date language was clarified more to make sure it's crystal clear to everyone in midstream of the process. And then the Smart Growth group, they were just passing emails back and forth with me, getting more clarification and understanding of why we were doing that, and then their suggestion here, but they did not mention whom it was coming from or why they were suggesting that.
Got it. And I just one quick addition before I call on Commissioner Lytle. I would say that, yeah, I think it's totally normal that ordinances will get changed over time as the people's views change, as the city's needs change, and I think that's normal and expected. And you know, if I feel like we end up making light and good changes generally, but you know, if anyone thought that was weird, they should work in, you know, software development where there's constant nonstop, you know, changes and incrementation and stuff like that. But Commissioner Lytle.
I guess unless I'm missing something completely, I don't see any reason that we would want to change and reduce electric vehicle charging spots. You know, we approve a lot of multi-tenant uses where we don't know whether it's going to be retail, food, or maybe even an office building or an office use. And so, you know, conduit is put out there while the parking lots, before the parking lot's poured, and curbs and things, while the tenants are still unknown. So the whole idea that we would want to scale back the amount of EV charging stations and where they're required just doesn't make sense to me. But, you know, unless staff or someone else sees something in this that I'm missing.
All right. Unless there are no more comments on the comment. Oh, is this a comment on the comments, or?
It was a comment on EV charging stations.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead then.
I was just going to say, their comments also super surprised me because I have friends that have electric charging vehicles, and we often have chosen our restaurant based on which one has a charging station. So their whole thing about how, you know, you're not there long enough to have, I don't know if they're basing it off of full charge. I don't think anyone expects to get a full charge while having a cup of coffee, but I definitely know that, you know, it has influenced where we've gone based on where our charging stations are. So I would not want to see those requirements changed either.
Other comments on the comments? All right. With that, we'll move on to basically the same. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Commissioner Bauer?
I'm just pointing out, wait, there's a hand up in the attendees. I'm not sure if that's something from now or from previous, or if we addressed those.
No,
I wasn't sure if you saw it.
yeah,
I believe that, yeah, I did see that previously. And in general, we don't call people from the audience unless they have registered to speak in advance or they are specifically on the agenda. So like when we brought the developers up, it's because specifically a commissioner wanted to ask them a question.
Sounds good.
Otherwise, yeah, we don't do that just because that's how the meetings are run.
Sounds good. I also will follow the kind of same line of the electric charging. I also choose where I'm going sometimes based on the charger, whether it's grocery store or dinner, and then just kind of by a lot of the automakers are pledging to 2030 not producing any more internal combustion engines. So I think the long view being continuing to push that as much as we can, whether it's with future developments or anything else in our purview.
Other comments on the comments? All right, seeing no further discussion, we'll move on to item 10, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the comprehensive amendment to the Verona Zoning Code, Title 13 of the Code of Ordinances, and map amendments to the official zoning map for properties in the city of Verona. Mr. Sayer.
So ultimately, unless there's other comments on it, this is a recommendation tonight to the council on potentially adopting this. And if you choose to adopt it, basically any project that comes in after the effective date would have to abide by the new ordinance. And with this, you would be adopting the new, or recommending to adopt the new zoning ordinance and the map that's associated with it as well. Does that cover it, Jackie? Yep. Okay. Thank you.
All right. For the sake of discussion, I will move that we recommend to the Common Council to adopt the comprehensive amendment to the Verona Zoning Code, Title 13 of the Code of Ordinances, and map amendments to the official zoning map for properties in the Verona, as written, with one exception, that the references to required native plants, that the percentage be 75%. Is there a second?
Second.
I think Alder Cole had, I'm not sure. We'll say seconded by Alder Cole. And if I could just add one clarification, I had briefly talked to staff about the 75% number. It's my understanding that it did not make it into the packet, so I just wanted to amend that as intended. But, you know, we've spent a lot of time discussing this, so motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? Okay. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of recommending to the Common Council to approve the comprehensive amendment to Verona Zoning Code, Title 13 of the Code of Ordinances, and map amendments to the official zoning map for the properties in the city of Verona, with the 75% native plant requirement, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion passes. We'll move on to item 11, which is reports and comments from the Planning Department. Mr. Sayer.
I don't have too many tonight. Sugar Creek Commons on West Verona Avenue has started. If you have not been out there, there's a big hole in the ground, which is nice to see. Our next Planning Commission meeting will be, as of right now, June 7th. I don't know. We may or may not have that meeting. We're just waiting to see if we, Catherine's shrugging her shoulders. So we'll let you know if we are not going to have it, but right now, the next one's planned for June 7th. We are looking at hybrid meeting options or in-person meeting options to kind of go back to that at some point. I guess if anyone has any kind of concerns about that, just, I guess, shoot me an email. You don't have to say it now. Just shoot me an email. Let me know if you have any concerns, questions about that. But we're looking at potential hybrid options and then ultimately moving back to in-person meetings here. Who knows? June, July, August. We'll see what happens. But we are slowly kind of progressing our way towards that. So more to come on that. The June meeting will be virtual, though. I can promise you that. If it happens, that will be virtual. Unless it's a light agenda, we could try out the hybrid option. But that's a conversation for Luke and I. So anyways, we're progressing towards that. And I think that's all I had. Catherine, did I miss any updates? I did? No. Oh, okay. No, we're good. Any questions for me?
Any questions for Mr. Sayer? Seeing no further questions, we'll move on to item 12, adjournment. A motion to adjourn would be in order. Commissioner Tagalong? Motion. Okay, motion.
There we go. Sorry. It wasn't unmuting when I was clicking it. Yes, I move we adjourn.
Motion by Commissioner Tagalong. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Powers. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And we are adjourned at 8:16 p.m. Thank you.
Well.
Aye.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.